seconds.
Is this where the damn drumming and the music kicks in?
Yeah. Good evening, beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of On the Pipe Podcast. I am your host, as always, Tyler Shepherdson, and today is Tuesday, April 27th, and we are bringing you an episode of OTP Tuesday. It's coming right back into your life. We have a lot to unpack, and we have a lot to talk about. Now, I know it's been a little bit of a hiatus, and I hate saying that so many times that I have in the past, but we are back on track. I went back and listened to some old episodes in the time that we've had off, and I've heard where I've done this speech that I was about to do before, and even I rolled my eyes and got tired of it. So I'm going to save you all of the, I don't know what you want to call it. I'm sorry. Let's just leave it at that. I'm sorry. We're going to be going OTP Tuesday every single week from here on out. Life has been hectic, but everyone's life has been hectic. And one thing that might help you through your hectic life is listening to OTP Tuesdays on a Wednesday morning or whenever you may choose to listen to it. So apologize for that. We are back in action. We are back rolling and bringing you another episode of OTP Tuesday. First of all, I want to say a big thanks to our buddies over at Armored Graphics. Armored Graphics has been longtime friends of the show. They have designed our logo. They have been the graphics provider for the JGR Suzuki team when it was still around. So they do really good work. You can check them out, armoredgraphics.com or at Armored Graphics. They are making a push to get back into the woods industry. And I just got myself a fresh Armored Graphics OTP kit, and I'm going to be putting it on my bike here soon. It was actually done by Ray Newton. So Ray Newton, we've talked about him several times on the podcast before, about him being a whiz with the camera, and now he's getting into the designing game as well. So he got my graphics dialed up. I'll be posting pictures of that here soon. Trevor Barrett, he's running OTP Armored Graphics. Andrew Coffey's going to be running OTP Armored Graphics. So a lot of stuff in the works and a lot of cool stuff coming out of Armored Graphics. So make sure you check them out, armoredgraphics.com or at Armored Graphics on the socials. Also, want to say a huge thank you to our newest sponsor, Ichthus CBD. That is IKTHUS CBD. You can check them out on the interwebs and also on social media. I know we've shared several of their posts before, but this has actually given me some time. I went through and I got some of the Ichthus product, and I was able to try it out. I've been using it now for past couple weeks, or a little bit longer than that. I don't know how long it's been, but yeah, you can. They make all sorts of products. They make one with melatonin in it that helps you get to sleep at night. They make a topical cream. They have gummies. They just came out with a new flavor of gummies. The gummies that I have, they are delicious. Like, I wish I could just sit there and eat all of them because they taste so good, but I don't think that is the recommended way to do it. They make tinctures. They make all sorts of different ways that you can do it. So as we've talked about in the past, riding, and as we'll find out here in this episode when we talk to Jesse Ansley, that riding, you get your fair share of bumps and bruises and injuries and ailments, and CBD has products to help you through all of that and help you recover better, be in less pain, maybe help out with inflammation so that it makes everything more comfortable and less painful, like we mentioned. And it's a natural way to do it. And you can check them out, ichthuscbd.com. They have all sorts of deals going on at any given time as far as shipping is concerned, or getting a percentage off of your order. There are several different promo codes from riders that they support. They have a whole slew of riders that they support, so you can find one of those riders and use their promo codes. Rachel Archer, she's been on the show in the past. She has her own ICTHU CBD promo code, so you can check out her Instagram and get that, or check out ICTHU CBD on Instagram or ICTHUCBD.com. Like I mentioned, they have a ton of different products, something for everybody, and it really does help, and it provides an alternative to taking the ibuprofens and things like that that can kind of break down. I'm not going to go into the science of it, but ibuprofen can actually break down the liner in your gut after some time, and that will actually increase inflammation in your problem areas because your body's trying to fight off where that gut liner has been broken down. So CBD is just an alternative to that, and ICTHU CBD, if you check out their website, they have done all sorts of clinical trials to prove and show why and how exactly this CBD works versus other competitors' CBD. And then also on every bottle, there's a batch number, so you can see the information on that specific batch that you're getting. So really good guys. They are a local company as well, and they have products that are proven to work. So you can check them out, ICTHUCBD.com. As we mentioned, we got a couple races to talk about here. I haven't spoke with you since the last GNCC, and then we had National Enduro over this past weekend, so a lot to unravel. We are going to be joined here in just a little bit by Trail Jesters KTM rider Jesse Ansley. Jesse's got a lot of stuff going on right now, doing some more creative stuff and putting out YouTube videos and staying involved with social media, but he's also winning races. He goes out and gets the win this past weekend at the Cajun Classic National Enduro, so we talked to him a little bit about that, so I'm excited to get to that interview. But let's start things back a couple of weeks ago at the Tiger Run GNCC. It was held at the Big Buck property, so it was in Union, South Carolina. One of the dustiest races that I've seen, not just a GNCC, one of the dustiest races that I have seen. It got bad. It got very bad. Visibility was low. Bumps were high. And it calls for a challenging day for a lot of riders. I actually raced on my adventure bike. It's a Yamaha Tenere 700. I got that a few weeks ago now, and I rode it off-road a couple times, and I was like, man, this thing does pretty good. And then the next GNCC just happened to be the one at Big Buck, which is probably about an hour and a half away from my house. I was like, you know what? If I'm going to do any race on this thing, Big Buck is probably the best location to do it because it's hard pack, and I'm probably not going to have an issue with traction or mud. There's no real bad hills. It's kind of an easy track. It's a rough track, but not a lot of obstacles that I would be worried about. So I actually rode that behemoth of a bike to the GNCC. I raced it in the morning race, and then I rode it home. That ride home felt like it was 9.5 hours instead of 1.5 hours, but we did it, checked it off the list, and I thought it was pretty cool. But yeah, I was able to ride the full 2 hours. I did stop a little bit in front of the finish line to wait for Becca Sheets to come and lap me, just because I wanted to support the women's class going through the podium. Going through the finish, rather. It definitely wasn't because I was getting my butt beat on that big old bike and didn't want to do another lap. I just wanted to see the end of the race was all. But enough about me. I thought it was a pretty fun experience, but then later on, a pro race broke out. Now, Stu Baylor has been the talk of the town, I want to say, here for the past year, but then it was after last summer when he came back from injury, but then it was also at the beginning of last season when he switched to Sherco, and then it was the season before that for all sorts of other hosts of reasons. Stu Baylor has always been the talk of the town. Let's not kid ourselves or kid anybody. But at the first round of the National Enduro Series, he had a bad crash where he put a big old gash in his back. Still won the National Enduro down there at Sumter. But then that injury kept him out of the first Big Buck, the opening round at GNCC, which immediately put him down 30 points behind the leader. Since then, he has been working to chip away and make that gap back up to where he is getting back in contention for the title. And he is doing just that. Besides at the second round where he had that issue down in Florida where he ended up finishing 8th, so he gave up some points then. He has won the 3 races after that. So each time Stu Baylor wins a race, he gains a minimum of 5 points on the points leader of Ben Kelly. Now, I do just want to talk about a couple things here before we get into the race. One, as we mentioned, Stu Baylor, a fan favorite. And I don't play favorites on here. I know a lot of people think that I play favorites. I talk about Caleb and the run that he's going on, and then all of a sudden, oh, why are you riding Caleb's dick? Why are you such a big KR fan? Why are you only talking? Because he's winning races. Because he's KR. I talk about Josh Strang. People do the same thing. Oh, why are you only talking about Josh Strang? I talk about Stu Baylor. Oh, why are you only talking about Stu Baylor? I don't. I talk about everybody. That is the point of this. When someone is in the news and in the media, they're going to get talked about. When people are winning races, they're going to get talked about. But if you look at the numbers that Stu Baylor polls, it's a little bit insane. And I've seen it on my end personally, but then you look at every other place where Stu Baylor's name is attached to, and whatever that is, wherever that is, it does significantly better numbers than when it's not about Stu Baylor. And like I said, I've had several messages talking about playing favoritism, and that's not it at all. But I do want to say that what Stu Baylor has been able to do and what he has been doing, I think is good for the industry as a whole. It's putting another name out there. It's creating a buzz. I mean, just for instance, when Stu comes on this podcast, I usually get at least 50% more downloads and more views, but a couple times, so when he came back and won his first race last year on the Yamaha, that race did double the downloads of any other race. And then when we had him on this year after he raced Sumter and he had that big gash in his back, same thing, it did double the numbers. When I post a reel or post something with him, it does significantly better than post without him. If you look at the post that GNCC posts, it's the same exact thing. Go back and look at National Enduro's post. Go look at Sprint Enduro's post. Go look at EnduroWorks post. Go look at Mac Faint post. It seems that when Stu Baylor is involved in it, it's just a bigger buzz around it. And I mean, like it or hate it, that's just what it is. But now we're watching him come back from this hole that he set for himself, and he's got to gain all that time back. And now when he missed that first race, and then when he had a bad second race, the first thing that he said, well, we've watched KR wrap this title up early several times. So he's basically just doing that backwards, where Caleb will get this point, and then maybe at the 10th round he would wrap it up. At the 11th round he would wrap it up. At the 12th round he would wrap it up. Stu Baylor's kind of doing that in the opposite sense. He's starting in the hole, and now he knows that if he goes and wins races, that he can make up that gap and get right back in the mix. And right now, he is only 10 points down from the leader, Ben Kelly. So Ben Kelly is currently leading the points at 107. Grant Baylor, who we saw get the big buck win, he's in second with 98 points, and just 1 point less than that. Back in that third place spot is Stu Baylor. Now, if you look at the way that the GNCC point system works for the pros, not the amateurs, but for the pros, a win is 30 points. A second place is 25 points. A third place is 21 points. A fourth place is 18 points, and a fifth place is 16 points. So if you get a top 5 in the XC1 class or any pro class, you are getting about half of the points as the winner is getting. Now that makes a lot of room to make up points very quickly. So as we mentioned, Stu Baylor's won the last 3 rounds, and now he is 97 points total for the year. That is 1 point away from second, and that is 10 points away from first. So even if Stu wins and Ben Kelly gets second, he's gaining 5 points every time. If Ben Kelly gets third, that's 9 points. So you can see just how valuable these points are and where they are going to affect these riders at. When you're talking about a 9-point gap from first to third, that's insane. And that is a way to build a lead fast, and it is also a way to take chunks out of that lead fast. Now, going one step off of that, I think one of the biggest bummers that we've seen this far, for sure. And I mean, I hate to say it like that because there have been several injuries and riders getting hurt and that stuff. But Josh Strang came into this season as a hefty favorite. I would consider him one of the favorites to win the title this year. Definitely on the short list. He had 2 wins last year, on the podium almost every race last year. He is a former overall champion himself back in 2011, and he came into this thing as the crafty veteran. Now, we say that Josh Strang is not old by any stretch of the imagination. Josh Strang is not old in any one sense of the term old, and he has shown that. He has shown that he is not going to age. I think this XC1 class is looking at his birthdays tick away, and they're wanting him to age, but he is just not going to. Josh Strang is a front runner. Josh Strang is a championship contender, and he came out and showed it this year. 3rd place at round 1, 2nd place at round 2, 2nd place at round 4. But the other 2 races have just been a bit of misfortune. So we saw in Georgia, it was Ben Kelly and Josh Strang got together on the first lap. From the sounds of it and everything that happened, it looks like Ben Kelly tried to force a pass early and ended up taking Strang out. Not on purpose by any means, but when that did happen, it tore off Josh's front brake line, so he comes back into the pits, gets that thing fixed, and he's able to go back out and salvage a 7th. But we just mentioned the points gap between 1st and 5th being 14 points. So that's an even bigger gap when you're talking about 7th. So Strang running on the podium, then all of a sudden has that blow to him, comes back, rebounds with a 2nd place finish at Camp Coker, where he won last year. And then this past GNCC, the last one at this big buck, he has a bad accident. I believe it was a 2nd lap, a 2nd or 3rd lap. He has a bad accident, cracks his hub in half. It was pretty insane. So I was actually standing right there at the Babbitt's Cowie pits when Strang came back. Lyndon was there, and the crew was working like mad to get Lyndon back out on the track. He was having some clutch issues with that master cylinder for his clutch, so they were changing that whole system out, trying to get it to bleed. Couldn't get it to bleed or pump up, so they were working on that when all of a sudden Strang comes back into the pits and just saying front wheel, front wheel, front wheel. So the team works like crazy, grabs everything, gets the front wheel changed, and I'm talking about this is less than 2 minutes. I was sitting there filming some of it when I saw Strang come back in. The team is already focused on Lyndon's bike. Now they have Josh in there, so everyone focuses on that one. So I quit filming, and I was just trying to do what I can to help out, move stuff around, and but just watching those guys work. I mean, that Babbitt's Cowie crew did a hell of a job when they were in there in the pits, but they get that front wheel changed and get Josh Strang back out on the track in what was less than 3 minutes for sure, probably close in that 2-minute mark. And that is absolutely insane when you talk about a team that is preoccupied and all of a sudden come in, have to diagnose the situation and solve that situation in a blink of an eye. Strang is grabbing his own gas jug, filling it up while the boys are swapping his front wheel. But then when he leaves, he pulls back out on the track. Obviously, you can't just go right back out where you were. He has to go through the pits and basically back out to the section of the track that he left in order to continue the race. But in and out, he gets back out on the track, and we're sitting there looking, and his front wheel that he took off was laying there. The hub was completely cracked, and I think that is absolutely insane for a factory bike to crack a hub. That is a hard hit. And so Strang, no doubt, had a really bad accident. I think from what I've heard, he hit his head during that accident as well and could just never get back into the groove of things after that. So I'm not sure how much of that the broadcast captured or what was going on, but no doubt a huge bummer to see. Not only does he come back in and have to get that front wheel changed, but then just has a little bit of trouble getting back into the flow and get back into the groove of things after taking such a hard hit. So that puts him in 11th place for the day, and that is going to lose him very valuable points on obviously taking an 11th place hit is almost like missing an entire round together. An 11th place finish is good for 10 points, so that's giving up 20 points to those leaders. But just that incident right there, Strang went into that race 3 points behind in second place. So he had a very good shot to take over the points lead. Instead, he finishes 11th and moves down to 5th place in the rankings. So that is a huge bummer. But as we have seen with Stu Baylor making this comeback that he is doing, Josh Strang can absolutely do the same exact thing. And that is what I think we can expect to see. Strang is hungry. He knows that he has a crack at this championship. He knows that he can get it done. And I think where he is always a consistent podium guy, he's always right there on the podium, second, third, clicking off wins here and there. I think now this is going to kind of show him that he needs to go for those wins. He needs to go out there and battle to get those 30 points week in and week out. And so he's not out of it by any means, but just such a bummer to see. As I mentioned, he's such a good guy and such a good person for the sport. I mean, such an ambassador to Kawasaki and his sponsors. I think the races have seen a whole lot more green over the past couple years as far as Kawasaki's that are racing in off-road. And I think a lot of that can be directly correlated to Josh Strang and Josh Strang's success and who Josh Strang is as a person. So it's one of those things where this title is going to come down to the wire. I mean, we got Stu Baylor, we got Ben Kelly. Thad Duvall was right there in the mix as well, but then he ended up getting hurt and missed some rounds too. I mean, Josh Toth, he's clicking off good finishes. He's kind of coming back from an injury as well. Ricky Russell gets back on the podium. This title is going to come down to the wire, and it's a long way from over. Grant Baylor, as we mentioned, he's been right there either on the podium or just shy of the podium. He's still sitting second place in points. So I guess that's a long way to go around to talk about this points championship and what it's coming down to. But yeah, now everyone is still kind of on even playing ground. I mean, Ben Kelly has had good races throughout the year. Stu's had 2 bad ones. Strang has had 2 bad ones. And it really, like I said, puts everyone back on a even playing ground. So round 5 is finished. There's still 8 more rounds to go, and I think it is going to be some of the most exciting GNCC racing that we have seen in quite some time, and I am looking forward to it. But looking at the Tiger Run GNCC, it was Stu Baylor that was able to go out there and get that win through those dusty conditions. He was the one standing in the middle of the box when the dust fell. I was actually standing there at the finish, and I recorded him going through, and the whole crowd, Stu comes out, and he's going around the last couple chicanes, and the whole crowd is sitting there cheering, going nuts. And then he does a little wheelie going through, and he doesn't loop it out. We've seen him loop it out several times. He doesn't loop it out. He just does a little wheelie, sets it down. When he set that front tire down, you can audibly hear the entire crowd go, "Oh!" And then as I'm walking over to where the rider's coming off the track, you just hear from every different way, "Oh, he didn't loop it out. Oh, man, he didn't loop it out." So I just thought that was pretty funny to hear. Ricky Russell on that Coastal Racing Gas, he came out swinging last year before he ended up with that gruesome injury that he was able to come back from. He finally gets back up on the podium. I know that is a big relief to him. So he is super stoked on that second place finish, and now that he knows that he can be and does belong right there on that podium, I think that's going to fuel him even more going into the rest of the season. And then Ben Kelly, your current points leader, getting it done, staying consistent, staying smooth, staying fast. He gets third place and some very valuable points as he extends his points lead to 10 points now over second place. That was your pro podium. Johnny Gerard ends up getting the win in XC2. Now, this XC2 battle went to the wire. It was back and forth. It seems like every time you saw them, they were in a different order, and Johnny ended up getting the lead late in the race, but he was the one that was able to hold on to it and grab the win in that XC2 class. Defending and reigning series champion Craig DeLong with the number 1 plates. He finishes second place in that XC2 class, and Thorne Devlin gets on his first GNCC podium of his career. So he was super stoked on that. But yeah, it was awesome to see Thorne up there on the podium. Now, last week, it was supposed to be Thorne and Ricky Russell that were on the podcast. The way that things worked out just ran out of time. So we're going to get those boys on the podcast here soon. They've both been on the podcast before. Both really great people to talk to and really great riders as well. So we'll try to hear from both of them. Coming up here soon, 125 Pro Class. It was Jonathan Johnson remaining perfect on the season. I think he won by about 4 minutes over second place of Chase Colville. But Chase Colville is a hole shot machine. If I'm not mistaken, he has grabbed every hole shot so far this year. And if you did not see the reel that he posted, I don't even know who filmed it, but it looked like a Mason Raider thing. But I didn't see a tag or anything on it. But if you have not seen his reel about him grabbing that hole shot at this last race, you need to go stop what you're doing right now and go watch it. It was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. He basically gets the hole shot, gives the wag of the finger, and with one hand while wagging his finger, slides into the second corner. Just the way it was in slow-mo. It was a really cool video. But yeah, Chase Colville, second place in that XC3 class, and then Ben Parsons, able to get on the XC3 podium. He is a rider that was coming into that XC3 class this year, and I think everyone had high expectations for him, so it's cool to see him up there on the podium in that XC3 class. And then looking at our women's pro class, it was Becca Sheets and Rachel Archer battling once again, but then Rachel ended up getting stuck, and then while trying to make up ground, she had a bit of a bad crash herself, and that led to Becca Sheets taking the women's pro win pretty decidedly. And then Corey Steed, also on a Babbage Cowie, she was able to get up there in second place and make it happen in that women's pro class. And then Taylor Jones back on the podium again. She ends up third place in that women's pro class. And then the top amateur battle came down to the wire. Is going to be a battle all year long between Bubs Tasha and JoJo Cunningham. This weekend, it was Bubs Tasha getting the better of it. He was the top amateur on the weekend. So it was a good race. Cool to see. Like I mentioned, some I don't think treacherous is the right word, but the amount of dust coupled with the track that Big Buck is, with the roots and the square edge bumps and how it's gotten rough and hard packed over the years. When you're going at that blind through the dust, it makes for a very small margin of error. And so those riders were definitely pushing through it. And yeah, it was cool to see the way it all shook up. Now, let's fast forward into this past weekend. It was round number 2 of the National Enduro Series. It was down in Forest Hills, Louisiana. It was in the dead center of Louisiana for the Cajun Classic put on by the Acadia Dirt Riders. I think I'm saying that right. But I guess we're at the point now where I can kind of fill you guys in on what is going on here. You've heard me mention on several past episodes about some new exciting racing coming. I can't give all the details on that quite yet. We're still working on it, but I do have everything lined up for that. I know a lot of people know what's going on as far as that that form of racing and what I'm planning to do is concerned. But publicly, I really want to get my ducks in a row before we put it all out there. Just it seems to be one hurdle after another, and now here we are almost May and don't have everything completely done, but we're on the right track, and hopefully I'll be able to bring that news to you here shortly. What I can tell you about is if you follow National Enduro, NEPG Enduro, you'll see that Alan Rant has been running that thing very successfully for quite some time now. It is a passion of his, and I got to see this weekend just how passionate he is about it, along with everyone that helps out, including Logan Densmore. Logan Densmore is a huge part of that series. He has kind of built that thing up and helped out a lot as well. And that's the biggest takeaway that I can say about this weekend is that enduro riders and the people running that National Enduro Series are very passionate, and rightfully so. I will admit I had not been around National Enduro as much. Just Sumter was the only one that I've been to. I think it might be the funnest form of racing that there is. You don't get to pre-ride the tracks at all. There's usually 6 tests. So you race one, let's say 7-mile section, you hang out for a little bit, and then you race the next 6-mile section, hang out a little bit, race the next 8-mile section, hang out a little bit, until you do 6. And so it's woods racing. You're still riding for, like, you go to a sprint enduro, you ride for 5 minutes at a time. And for me, that's just enough to stay arm pumped up the entire time. Whereas National Enduro, you have enough time to settle in and get in a groove, and it's kind of a longer form, and you get 6 different tests, which are new every single time, and no one is allowed to see it beforehand. So you're kind of coming around a corner and making a decision on the fly. And it's all fresh trail. There's no quads being ridden on it. I mean, it's all fresh single track. And it's some of the most fun and flowing trails that there is. It's actually really cool, and I had a blast doing it. But if you follow the series, you'll see that Alan and his wife Melissa decided to make 2021 the farewell tour, and that kind of put what was going on with National Enduro up in the air, where no one really knew what was going on. And then you see a post come out that due to new help and some things going on, that they're going to keep it going. So that was kind of my role this weekend. Without getting into too much detail, I was there just shadowing Alan, figuring it out. Definitely don't have it all figured out yet, but just shadowing Alan, shadowing Logan, shadowing Josh, who was there helping as well, and really the whole NEPG crew to really learn what enduro racing is about, for one, but then also kind of see how it all works and how it all comes together, because I'll be helping out with running those for the rest of the year and beyond. So I guess right now at this point, that's a good way to put it, is I'm just learning, helping out, and going to be doing what I can to help out to keep the series going and keep them going, or keep them running. So it's important to me to be able to help enough to keep them running the exact same. I mean, these things have a huge following, and like I mentioned, it's one of the funnest forms of racing that there is. And enduro riders, it's such an old tradition, and it is one of the oldest forms of racing, and the National Enduro Series is actually the longest running AMA National Championship that there is. So there's a lot of culture behind it, there's a lot of prestige behind it, and there is a long history of enduro racing, and it's really cool to learn that and be a part of it. And I'm excited for the future and what that has to hold. And yeah, I think it's going to be cool to be able to be at all the rest of them and see what happens from there. But this past weekend, got there on Thursday, rode all of the tracks, so rode all of the tests, and then kind of make changes, do this and that, put up more arrows, that kind of thing. And then Friday night, the sky let out. I think it ended up being 4 inches of rain on Friday night. It is in a national forest, so Saturday morning we were waiting on confirmation from the Forestry Service of whether or not we'll be able to even run the race. The race was in jeopardy for some time there. I don't think it was till about lunchtime on Saturday that we even got the okay to go racing. So everyone has just driven all that way, all the way out to Louisiana, and here we are almost lunchtime on Saturday, not knowing if there's even going to be a race. The track did break down quite a bit just in places, but the amazing part was how well that property handled the water. From seeing it Saturday morning to seeing it Saturday evening, you wouldn't even think it was the same section of trail. Obviously, with that much rain, there's bound to be some mud. There's bound to be some stuff that happens, and we saw that kind of develop on Sunday with a mud race and how tough and technical it got. But all in all, I think that track came around, and I think it was a really fun track and a really good track. And most importantly, we were able to race. Now, Going into the final test of the day, it was Grant Baylor in the lead by 17 seconds. Stu Baylor put the hammer down. He goes out and makes up that 17 seconds and then some, and he grabs the overall win. We saw him win down there in Sumter. Now he makes it 2 wins in a row at round number 2. Grant Baylor, the defending series champion, he gets second place. Once again, here he got second place in Sumter, and he gets second place this weekend at the Cajun Classic. The Baylor boys are very good at enduro racing. I think that speaks for itself. Stu's a 4-time national champion, and Grant is the defending national champion from last year, so it is really cool to see them in their element and racing back and forth and tracking them throughout the day. So that's going to be a back and forth battle all year to watch. Josh Toth, as we mentioned, he's coming back from an injury from his hand. He is starting to get rolling and building momentum of his own. He gets third place on the weekend in that pro class and bumps Ben Kelly off the podium. But just barely. So Ben Kelly ends up finishing fourth, but Josh Toth rounds out the Pro 1 podium. Down in the Pro 2 class, Jesse Ansley makes it 2 for 2. He got the win in Sumter as well, and then he goes back-to-back, gets the win in Louisiana. And we're going to talk to Jesse here in just a moment, and it's actually a really cool story of how this is even coming together for him. William Stephen Piper was able to get second place in that Pro 2 class. He had a hell of a ride all day, and he stays consistent and ends up putting it in that number 2 spot. Jonathan Johnson, who is guns blazing in that XC3 class on a 125, he is racing a 250F at the National Enduros, and he lands another podium in that Pro 2 class. And then moving down to our women's elite class, Shelby Turner also makes it 2 for 2 on the year. So all 3 pro classes, the points leaders are undefeated so far in 2021. Shelby Turner also won Sumter. She won this past weekend. Rachel Guttish had a bit of a bad luck in test number 2. Rachel actually won test 1, 3, and 4. The only test that she didn't win was test number 2, where she got stuck and gave up about 4 minutes trying to get out of that situation. And then Brooke Cosner ends up rounding out the women's elite podium. So Brooke Cosner gets third place on the weekend, and Mackenzie Tricker, the defending series champion, she ends up in 4th place. So not the best luck for Kenzie there, but Brooke was able to make it happen and rounds out that podium. So it was cool to watch all the racing happen. Like I mentioned, I'm excited to be at the Enduros. It's a really cool environment, really cool racetracks, and I'm super excited to be a part of it and be involved with it going forward. And like I said, we'll see what happens. But other than that, there's some other topics going on in the off-road world. I'm planning to get together with the boys so we can sit there and discuss it as well. I know it's probably hard to sit here and listen to my voice for this long for these things, so want to get some other opinions and kind of go back and forth with those topics, so keep an eye out for that coming soon. Next Tuesday, we'll be back with another episode of On the Pipe podcast, and yeah, for OTP Tuesday, but hoping to drop one in between now and then, as we mentioned, just talking about some of the other things that are going on in the off-road world. But for now, we're going to go ahead and move into our first guest of the evening, and actually our only guest of the evening. But it's a really cool interview. Really nice to catch up with Jesse Ansley, and we'll get to that now. Thank you guys once again for listening. And whatever you're listening to it on, if you could just go ahead and hit that subscribe button and be a friend, tell a friend. If you enjoy these shows and enjoy what we got going on, let a friend know, send it to them, let them know how they can listen to it, and looking forward to the next one. Thanks again for listening, and we will see you next week. Coming off of a National Enduro win down in Louisiana at the Cajun Classic, a 2-time XC3 champion and an actual AA National Enduro champion, Jesse Ansley. Jesse, what's going on today?
Oh, we just got back late last night, and just chilling, getting ready to kind of start the week and get ready for Ironman this weekend.
Yeah, so Ironman 1 happening this weekend. We just came off of Big Buck 2, so now going into Ironman 1 and then Ironman 2 later in the season. All sorts of racing going on. But You actually just got back to racing from a broken hand. How's that going? How's that whole process going? I mean, are you still having issues with the hand? Kind of walk us through what happened and how you've been recovering from it.
Yeah, everything's been going pretty well. Broke my hand, I think, like roughly a month ago, and I pretty much knew exactly when I did it. And so, luckily, or unfortunately and luckily for my position, Josh Toth ended up breaking his same bone in his hand like a month before I did. So when I knew I broke my hand, I called him and I got in contact with his doctor, which come to find out he takes care of a lot of us. So Stu and Grant and Josh and just everyone. So he understood my situation and got me fixed up well. And I ended up just getting a big long screw in the center of my bone in my hand. And then when I got out of surgery, he said, keep the temporary cast on for like 2 days and then start moving as much as I can. And he said, just ride whenever you're comfortable. So that's what we did. I ended up riding like 14 days after surgery, and then we went racing like 15 days after surgery. So in this sport, especially at the pro level, you can't really afford to take time off, especially during the season. And I've kind of learned that you have to just ride through injury and you have to ride through nagging pain no matter what. So that's what we did, and I feel like I've gotten a lot better with it with age. And I ended up having really good success coming back so far. Still figuring out the GNCC, the races with the hand. I can really only hang on for so long, but the sprint style races, I've pretty much proved I'm one of the faster guys on the East Coast so far. So yeah, it's going pretty good, and the injury is still nagging, but it gets the job done, and it's only going to get better from here.
Yeah, for sure. And so one of the first things that you said there, you think you know when it happened. How do you break your hand and not know exactly when it happened?
Well, so I ended up crashing, and I crashed on the cross test at the U.S. Sprint Enduro, and I ended up picking up my bike, and my hand hurt, obviously, but I kept going, and I went to pull in the clutch, and I couldn't. I was like, okay, something's wrong. And I really couldn't even hang on, to be honest. Like, I was going on the straightaway, and I could just almost feel the bone moving. So I just rode the whole test. I knew because it happened first test of day 2, and I knew I had to at least clock out of the test that I clocked in to get points. So I just rode around the whole cross test with one hand. I don't know why, but I just kind of full sent it still. I was still doing the doubles and everything. Not like it really mattered, but just kind of like racing instinct. I just kept going as fast as I could, and then got back to the trailer, and I pretty much knew I was done for the day. So I ended up kind of just chilling the rest of the day, and then going to the doctor on Tuesday.
Damn. Like you said, man, at that top level, I mean, we saw Toth racing with a similar injury like you mentioned, and just all sorts of stuff going on and people racing through it. So for you to be able to come back so quick and have the success coming back is awesome. But you said it was 15 days later that you raced. How long has that been since the injury? Like, how long from now ago was the injury?
I'm not too sure on the exact date, but it's got to be roughly a month.
Gotcha. So still not that far out of it. How's it feeling right now? Like, how did it feel over the weekend?
It still gives me a little bit of problems on a ride, just because it stiffens up. I've got some scar tissue built up in my hand, so I don't really have that much of range of motion. So gripping is pretty tough for me, but like I said, it gets the job done, and I've kind of learned to be acclimated to it and just learn to adapt. And I hit a couple times on some trees just because I'm hard-headed enough to run flags at National Enduro, and it was pretty painful, but it was nothing I couldn't take, and just kind of just head through it.
Damn. So, I mean, just to get into National Enduro a little bit more, and really talk about your weekend, you came out at Sumter. Now, you haven't raced National Enduro since 2018, correct?
Yes. Sorry, I was drinking water.
I tricked you.
But
I guess you're right in the middle of a swig.
Yeah, no, 2018 was my first full season of National Enduro and my last full season of National Enduro. I raced the AA class on 125, and yeah, it was awesome. I did really good. I got some good overalls, and I really like the National Enduros, to be honest.
Sweet. Yeah, and so, I mean, you come out to Sumter this year, and I just got done watching some of your vlogs today, but you mentioned in there that you kind of went out to Sumter just to do a little bit of testing. Like, didn't really plan on racing them. You go out and get the win. Like, okay, let's go try round 2. You come out to round 2, and you get the win again by a good bit, and 5th place overall. So, I mean, when you came out to Sumter and won Pro 2, I think it kind of turned some heads, and people were like, damn, Jesse Ansley went out there and won Sumter. How does that make this one feel to come back to round 2 and grab another win?
It always feels good to win, especially in this sport. But yeah, coming into Sumter, it was kind of a last-minute decision. I knew I wanted to ride my race bike before the race, but I really couldn't line anything up. So I asked for permission to go to the Sumter, and my mechanic was able to come with me. And yeah, that was my new mechanic's. Me and his first race together, and yeah, it was cool. We got the win. Yeah, and then we said, well, we really weren't planning on doing the whole series, like I said, and after the win, we said, well, we'll just take it one race at a time. We're not going after the championship, but it's always good to get some race wins under the belt and some different type of racing. So we made plans to go to round 2 like 2 weeks ago, and then yeah, to get the win again. It was I think I put the nail in the coffin to the people that doubted me, that like kind of wrote me off the last couple of years, and I've really had a rough go since I got off the 125s, and yeah, I've been doing really good at the sprint enduros. I feel like I could get some wins there. I just need be a little bit faster, but National Enduros, it kind of fits my style. And obviously we're getting wins there, and I really need to get better at GNCCs, but yeah, it's I still have a lot of time. I'm still 20 years old, so it's it just comes with time, and yeah, I feel like for GNCCs, I'll be a top contender here soon, and we can kind of get back to where we were a couple years ago.
And I think that's what a lot of people forget, is that you are just 20 years old. I feel like you're one of the oldest 20-year-olds out there as far as racing is concerned. I mean, doing what you did on mini bikes and coming straight into big bikes, and I know you spent some time in 250A, but then to come out, do what you did in XC2, and then back that up, XC3, and back that up, win a second XC3 title. I feel like you've kind of been through a lot of it, and now you are only 20 years old, and you're kind of coming into your own and having some success at the sprints and having success at National Enduro now this year, and chipping away at that GNCC thing. Like you said, I know that's the main focus, but I mean, as far as this past weekend is concerned, there's a lot about the Enduros that I didn't know, and then obviously now I got a lot to learn with it. But riding the test before all the rain came in on Friday, they were really good. Everything was perfect. And then it ended up getting, I think it was like 4 inches of rain on Friday night, and it kind of added some challenges to the course. So you come out there and you get the win. Is that a course, like, did you feel comfortable riding it and pushing it, or was it more of like survival of the fittest and you were out there just making it happen?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I feel like some sections I could really ride hard, and then other sections that you got to try to be smart. But yeah, I got really lucky with I was able to win Sumter, so I got row 21, which was the first pro row besides the women. But yeah, I was pretty much the first pro to all the nasty mud holes and the ruts and stuff. So I put myself in a really good position in hindsight, even though, it's like you try your best every single time you win or you race. But yeah, to get road 21, I think I was gifted with the rain. And but yeah, that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. I feel like I've gotten the shitty end of the stick before, and now I got the really good end of the stick. So I feel like my fifth overall was definitely helped with the rows that I had, but I felt like I rode good all day. So I'll take it while I can.
Yeah, for sure. And like you mentioned before, you're not, or you mentioned in your video that you're not contracted for National Enduros. It started out as, hey, let's go try this. Well, we won. Let's go back. So now what's the future from here? Are we going to round 3? And if you win round 3, are you in it for the long haul? I mean, what's your thoughts now as far as running 3 series?
Yeah, so the plan is to go to round 3. Obviously it'd be kind of stupid of me to not go. But I won't say that I won't be going to round 4 if I don't win round 3. I think that would be pretty stupid as well, just because you can't really just quit when you don't win. But we just have to take it race by race and kind of see if it's affecting my other series. And the travel's pretty crazy for National Enduro, and racing every single weekend takes a toll on your body. So I pretty much just have to be smart with it. And yes, I'm doing good at the National Enduros, but really it's not my main priority. And GNCC and Sprint Enduro is. So that's pretty much it on that. And yeah, I'm excited to go to round 3. I'm not even sure where it's at, but we will look at the schedule and make some plans for it.
Virginia, and so it's not that far of one to travel to. But this is just me asking, I guess I would say off the record, but we're kind of having a conversation that people are listening to, so I guess it's not really off the record. But with that whole series, like being contracted to race 2 series, with giving up a day at a Sprint Enduro, I know that doesn't really mean a whole lot in the grand scheme of things, but is that something that you could potentially have the option to, well, hey, I'm winning all these National Enduros, let's go after this championship and kind of move on from the Sprint Enduros? Is that an option, even jumping over? Because with National Enduros being a national championship versus just a featured championship, and I mean, I guess, would you even want to do that if it was an option?
That's a tough question. I think really it's more out of my control than what people think for what series I run. So, there was talks at the beginning of the year before racing even started about me doing National Enduro, and Sprint Enduro was my second series. So sometimes you get to choose and sometimes you don't. And so, yeah, that's pretty much that's why I'm contracted to the U.S. Sprint Enduro. I love that style of racing, and I think, the bigger picture is obviously for sprint speed and then to get acclimated for the International 6 Days event that goes on every year. So we still have a lot of learning to do, and I'm not really in a position to call the shots. I think I have to, I'm so young. And I have a lot of opportunities. I feel like I have to listen to kind of the higher ups in the sport and just kind of let the people that I trust guide me in the right direction. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think I would ever, or I don't think I have the option to quit U.S. Sprint Enduro to go race National Enduro. I think if one had to go, it would definitely be National Enduro. But, either way, I mean, I'm still racing a dirt bike every weekend, and you really can't complain. So it's fun either way.
Heck yeah. And I didn't mean to put you on the spot with that. That was not a planned question. It just sparked my mind when you were kind of talking about it before. But last couple things here, and then I'll let you go. I do appreciate you taking your time out to talk with me this evening. But as far as GNCC is concerned, you're having success at other series, and then you're going to GNCC, and I don't think I'm going out on a limb by saying you're not getting the results that you expect for yourself or want for yourself. You've obviously shown that you have the speed, you have the sprint speed, and now I know the hand injury makes it tough to hold on for 3 hours, but what do you think has been the biggest difference or the biggest hurdle as far as going right back into having success in XC2?
Really, I think it's just I wouldn't say luck because I don't really believe in luck, but it's putting yourself in the right positions. As you saw last race, Thorne got his first podium, and 2 races before that we were battling for 8th place. So it's just like there's so many people that can do good at GNCC, and I always seem like I'm always at the tail end of the group. But yeah, it's just like I'm not too sure. Obviously, if I knew, I wouldn't be back there. I feel like we're still working on some issues, some personal issues, and my speed is awesome. I feel like I'm one of the faster 20-year-olds on the East Coast in the off-road right now. So the speed's definitely not the question, and my endurance is great. So yeah, I go to GNCCs and I seem like I can't put the race together. So it's pretty frustrating, not gonna lie. I know I have a lot more to give, and it's almost like I got to pick up the pace, or I got to kick the bucket. So it's pretty frustrating to go to the GNCCs for me right now, and put in my 100% effort, and know that I'm not putting everything I have into the race. Obviously, every time you go out there and you ride, you got to put in 100%, or when you're a little bit off, it obviously shows. So yeah, I go into these other series and I ride great, and I beat these factory guys, these guys that are getting paid salary, and then I go to GNCCs and I pretty much prove to these people that those guys are better than me. So I just got to really put the pieces together at GNCCs, and things I think will start clicking here in the future.
Hey man, the good thing is that you got a shot to go do that this weekend, and then you got 7 more shots after this weekend to do it. And you've had success at GNCCs before on multiple different levels, and I think for you to recognize it and kind of know what's going on with you and yourself, and want to push to get faster, I have no doubt that you're going to see that success come. And like you said, you have plenty of time to get there, but I know that you want to be there now. So really rooting for you, man. I hope that everything turns out well, and I hope that you're able to find that success in that XC2 class that you're capable of. Last thing, you did mention in your when I was doing some research, it's almost like I was prepared to be a podcast host today, but I was watching some of your videos, and you mentioned something about another event in 2021, and you mentioned preparing to get better at ISDEs and that type of racing. Is that the event that we're talking about? Is there any inside scoop about ISDE, or what's your other event? Are you allowed to talk about it?
Yeah, obviously, it's no secret that there's opportunities to go to 6 days, especially when you're on the younger side. But
and a couple junior riders just aged out.
Yeah, that's really the goal. If I'm being completely honest, I don't think I'm going to have a shot at the junior spots, but I really can't say 100% on whether I'm going to go to 6 days or not. It's obviously been in the talks to go on the club team, just to kind of get the feelers out. And obviously one day I want to go on the junior team. I think it'd be awesome to represent my country and racing my dirt bike and competing against everyone across the world. So that's definitely something I have my sights on for the near future, but it's not 100% as of right now, so I can't really speak too much on it. But yeah, like you said, you were searching or you're researching whatever, watching the videos. This year I started branching out and doing a little bit more media just to kind of build my brand up a little bit more. Obviously, as you know, once you're not getting the results that you want, everyone they don't really forget about you, but it's harder for them to stick around. Obviously, like no one, obviously I don't like posting that I get better results, let alone the media people. So, I'm a people's person, and I feel like I know what kind of market I need to be reaching. So I've been doing YouTube videos and trying to build that brand and kind of show everyone a little insight to what it's like to be a professional racer.
No, and I think that's really cool that you're doing that. Like I said, I've checked out videos in the past, but I was going through and watching a bunch of them today. How can people find your YouTube channel and your social medias and everything?
So luckily, it's just my name for YouTube, and it's pretty easy once you type it in. I feel like I have some pretty old cringy videos on there, so just a warning, don't go too far in the archives, but just my name on YouTube and pretty much my name on Instagram. I feel like I've built a pretty good brand so far, but we're not done yet. There's, like I tell everyone, there's so much more to life than just dirt bikes, and I want to enjoy it, and posting on social media and making videos and doing all that cool stuff. Like it's, I don't think it's distracting me from racing by any means. I feel like it gives me a good escape when I am doing these kind of so-called side hobbies. And it's cool. I'm an enthusiast of the sport, and I just want to give back. And if this is how I can get back, then it's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that also keeps having fun at the forefront of it too, because you do get paid to race a dirt bike, but people start riding because it's fun. And I think that's one of those things that carries on a lot, especially later in careers, and even when you go through these times that where you're trying to get those better results. I think if the fun is lost in it, that affects it a lot too. So it's really cool to see the behind the scenes and see you at the races and even out there in the cast pointing lines and everything. So, but yeah, man, like I said, I really appreciate your time for talking with us this evening and getting to catch up a little bit. And yeah, man, I'm wishing you luck this weekend and for the rest of your season.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.